Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Planning and Development Committee meeting of Monday, October 26, 2020. We have a quorum. And do we have a motion to suspend the rules?
I move that we suspend the rules to allow us to conduct the meeting utilizing the Zoom conference software in lieu of an in-person meeting and in conformance with the governor's power directives relating to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Second. Okay. Johanna, do we need a roll call for this one? Yes. Would you call it, please?
Alderman Fisk?
Yes.
Alderman Nguyen?
Yes.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Ruth Simmons?
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton?
Aye.
Alderman Ravel?
Aye.
And Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, so the motion passes. First, I'd like to take item M1, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of October 12th, 2020.
Second.
Alderman, Johanna, do we need to call?
Yes, I'll call the roll. Alderman Fisk?
Yes.
Alderman Nguyen?
Yes.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons?
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton?
Aye.
Alderman Ravel?
Aye.
And Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone. I know we have a number of people signed up for public comment, and I think we'll get to that in just a moment. With the committee's agreement, I'd like to rearrange the items that we have for consideration tonight, and I'd like to have P3. What I'd like to do is I'm going to take P3 first, which is the special use for the plan development, and then move on to P1 and P2. I think that it's important for us to approve or take under consideration and determine what we're doing with the development before we move forward with the plat of subdivision. So I'd like to move P1 off the top of the list. And it might be that we should do P2 or P3 first, whichever anyone would like to take. So with that, let's go to public comment. Ms. Neiden.
All right.
First, before you start, can you tell us how many people are signed up?
Let me count.
I think I have 16, Johanna.
Oh, thanks, Luke. There's a lot of rows here.
Okay. So we have 16 people signed up, and then I'd like to let everyone know that we're going to have two 10-minute presentations, one from a representative of the developer and one from as a representative of the community. So we'll do those after we do public comment. So why don't we start with our first person who signed up for public comment. Let's give everybody 2 minutes. If everyone can keep their comments to 2 minutes, then we'll be able to get through everyone, and the committee will be able to deliberate in an appropriate amount of time. All right, who's first?
First is John Moore, then Bob Frocher, and then Jennifer Fisher.
Great. Hi, this is John Moore. Thanks, Joanna. Just speaking about the 1621 Chicago Avenue plan development, 3 quick points. First is that very generally speaking, I support all of the reasons to oppose and deny the project that are expressed so eloquently in the change.org petition for the project, which I think explains very clearly the multiple reasons why the committee should deny the project. Second is, I saw this weekend, maybe it was Friday, the mayor's very compelling message to the community on our response to the pandemic. And one of the things he said in the communication was that small businesses are a major part of the essence of Evanston. And it got me thinking about what the essence of Evanston is. And at least for me, this project is the antithesis of the essence of Evanston. And so I'd encourage you to think of it in that light. And finally, on the reparations point, I see the developer has proposed to offer up a payment to the reparations fund in exchange for approving the project, please don't let the developer get away with this basically pay-to-play payment here. Reparations fees should be applied fairly and across the board to all upcoming projects and done so in an equitable manner. They shouldn't be dangled by developers an inducement to get approval for otherwise unsatisfactory projects that are unacceptable to the community. So thanks very much. That's it.
All right, thank you.
Bob Frocher.
Yes, can you turn on my video? I'm not that good looking, but
I believe you're the only one who can turn on your own video. I'm not sure I have that.
the host turned it off, so it's now on. My name's Bob Fritcher. I'm a resident of Evanston. I've been following this project for years now. I am a pro-development citizen. I am adamantly opposed to this development. It fails on virtually every basis. You're going to hear more from Bill Brown, Dennis Harder, and others of our group who are adamantly opposed to this development. Hopefully you read the PowerPoint I sent you, but to summarize, this development has no support from any of the key citizen or City of Evanston review bodies. It violates or does not comply with virtually all of Evanston's official plans, guidelines, and standards. It has material violations of the relevant zoning requirements. The developer didn't even consider the impact on the Evanston Historic District, nor the historic landmarks within 500 feet. It's got strong opposition from the community, and it's a terrible precedent given the complete lack of support from any of the review bodies and all the other violations and lack of compliance I mentioned above. Others will go into those in more detail. I did want to mention briefly, I do agree with John Moore's comment of concern about the behavior of the developer on Friday. There is a prescribed process and protocol for getting development projects approved. I am a fan of the reparations committee and fund. I am a contributor to the fund, but that is not the way. Having these conversations outside of the process that is prescribed is not the way to get this development approved. They should develop a 6 to 9 story development consistent with the guidelines of the community, consistent with the zoning. By the way, just to wrap up, this particular developer is already in the community, is the owner of the Marion, is benefiting and profiting from the community. Nothing prevents them from writing a nice big check to that reparations fund, and I would love to see them do nothing other than that. Everyone here should do the right thing. The Planning and Development Committee should reject this. The City Council should reject this development, and this developer should generate a nice big check for the reparations fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frosher. I appreciate that. As a courtesy, would everyone who is not on the committee, would you all mind turning off your video? It's easier for us to see who's having the discussion, and I think it might be easier for all of you to concentrate as well. I really appreciate that. Okay, Ms. Neiden, who's next?
Next is Jennifer Fisher, then Reverend Grace, Matthew, and then William Brown.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Jennifer Fisher, and I too am concerned about the blatant violations of the zoning and building code. I'm concerned about the increase of traffic if this building would be built. I'm concerned that during the time of a massive public health crisis, we would even be thinking of adding to the very obvious vacancies in Evanston. I'm also concerned that if a developer tries to get his or her ideas to the Planning and Development Committee and then City Council with a donation to our reparations fund, something that is starting to right the wrongs of the past, it cheapens our ideals and actions of what Evanston is all about. The proposed building should literally rise or fall on its own merit and not based on how much we can get out of the builder. It sets a horrible precedent city and future initiatives. I bet values, buildings, our reparations fund, and especially Evanston should not be for sale. Thank you.
Thank you. And who do we have next?
Pastor Grace.
My name is Reverend Gracie Matthew. I'm the senior pastor of First United Methodist Church, Evanston. We're located on the corner of Church and Hinman. I speak opposing this project. I speak here 6 days before All Saints Sunday, surrounded by a cloud of witnesses. Not only is First Church the first church built in Evanston with members such as John Evans, Mr. Arlington Lunt, and John Beveridge, to name a few, but one of the earliest members, Willard Francis, wrote, "When I reach heaven, I want to register as from Evanston." And so we love Evanston. And like a tree that can be trimmed in due time, a building is here to stay. And 100 years from today, that building will be here. And furthermore, the decision cannot be influenced by 1/5 of my congregation's annual budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Grace.
And William Brown.
Just trying to get my video going. Doesn't seem to want to come on. There we go. Good evening. I'm William Brown, a resident of Evanston for 43 years, a member of First United Methodist Church for 35 years, and the current chair of the Board of Trustees of the church. I'm hoping to speak for a few extra minutes as a representative of the entire church. I'm talking tonight on behalf of the congregation of a church, some 650 people. The church sits on the edge of the Lakeshore Historic District, on the adjacent historic district, providing an anchoring presence for the neighborhood since 1870. As designed, the proposed 17-story building is completely overbearing on the adjacent historic built environment. It would be a mere 20 feet away from our church. Frankly, it's disturbing that such a tall project would be considered for the east side of Chicago Avenue, where the buildings step down as they move towards the lake. Further, the new building would be directly across the street from the existing building of 20-some floors, a canyon effect in making on Chicago Avenue. In the previous meeting, it was asked of the developer why building needed to be so tall. The answer from Horizon was because construction costs are so expensive. Okay, so that suggests that some economy of scale is provided by a bigger building. But the reality is that a taller building costs more to build the taller they get. I think the real answer to the question is more maximizing return of investment. The small site and the way to leverage return is to build as tall a building as possible. And the building did start out at much taller at some 20 stories. Profit should not be made at the expense of the neighborhood. Besides the height of the building, its impact on the alley traffic is a major concern for the church. There's 15 spaces parking lot just off the alley on the south side of the church and directly behind this proposed building. At present, the alley is so busy that waiting to leave the church lot often leads to delays of 20 minutes or more, not to mention frequent lack of access to the lot. On one occasion, our senior pastor, Grace Matthew, was significantly delayed in getting to a hospital on an emergency call response. Not a good situation. The proposed building will make a bad situation worse with increased alley traffic generated by the activity of this building. Tenant deliveries, moves in and outs, trash pickups, operational deliveries. The addition of food service in the retail space would only make matters worse. There are other concerns, but in conclusion, the project as planned would have a number of negative impacts on its closest neighbors, including First United Methodist Church. As a congregation, we urge the Planning and Development Committee to vote no for the project as currently planned. Horizon can do better. Thank you for your time, your attention, your consideration.
Thank you.
Next, I have Dennis Harder, but I understand that he's going to speak at the end for the 10 minutes. Is that correct?
Okay.
Then let's see. Sarah Lewis is speaking to P4. We have a couple P4s. Mike Vasilko for P3.
Okay, so there it is. I'm also speaking to oppose the 1621, 1631 Chicago Avenue development. It amazes me that it even got to the council, but what's striking is that the developer is asking for a height of 185 feet, whereas 105 feet is permitted. An FAR of asking for an FAR of twice what's permitted, 10.38 versus 5.4, asking for 215 dwelling units versus the 54 that are permitted, and is generously offering 85 parking spaces, whereas 162 are required. So it's pretty typical these days where the staff kind of all bends over backwards to, even though staff is recommending denying this particular development, but in the past there have been many developments where they bend the rules backwards and sideways to accommodate a deep pocket developer who wants everything for nothing. So I strongly recommend denying this development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vasilko. Ms. Knighton, who do we have next?
Carlos Sutton, and then Tina Payton, and then Sue Carlson.
Okay.
Good evening. I want to first agree with all the previous opponents. And secondly, I want to add my concern about this building. It should not be granted such a large variance. It does not meet the needs of affordable, qualified housing in this community. And their previous experience with minority members in their building has been one of discrimination. And I hate to think that they would be allowed to implement any more further practices when they evicted purposely, when they converted from the hotel, the North Shore, to their particular unit. Several elderly Black people were evicted and never had a chance to return. So I'm looking at variances. I'm agreeing with the previous members. And I also don't like the idea that rather than offering us units and something to help our housing crisis, that we have reparations being considered. I think that is about as low as you can go. And I do not think that we should be even considering a developer who wants to participate in bait and switch. He has changed his proposal on many terms, and it still does not meet the needs of the existing zoning and the existing requirements for that particular plot. I'm like others. I don't even know how I got this far, but it is your responsibility and reaction to your citizens to defeat this proposal for once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton.
Tina Payton, and then Sue Carlson.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hope everyone is well. Like the previous people that spoke before me, I am opposed to the 1605 through 1631 Chicago Avenue building. I think it was not appropriate that they were at the reparations meeting on Friday offering the $100,000. If they want to give reparations $100,000, they should give it free and clear of despite if you approve the project or not. It just sounded like a shady deal to me, and they should never have been presented at the reparations meeting. Also, these type of buildings, there's a lot of buildings coming up that are luxury apartment buildings, as we have many that you have passed already. Albion, the Avador, E2, the Link, and so forth. All of these buildings are pushing out minority and low-income people. And also there is too many tall buildings. Soon we'll have the Sears Tower or the John Hancock here in Evanston. Also, how many affordable units for families that need 2, 3, or 4 bedrooms? All the developers that you approve are only approving studios and 1 bedrooms and a couple of 2 bedrooms. No buildings for families. How many buildings have you approved in the last 5 years that are for families? How many units have you lost? And from the last time that I counted was about 7,000 affordable units. Where do the low income and families go to? Now we're in a pandemic and crisis, and you're pushing them out of Evanston. Evanston is receiving a lot of grant money for affordable units for people not to be homeless. And where will they go? Not in these luxury buildings that you're approving. Please deny this building as well as other future buildings of this magnitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Black Lives Matter.
All right, next we have,
Sue Carlson and then Kira Kelly.
okay, welcome, Sue.
I can't say anything more. I think the previous speakers have listed all the things that would have been on my list, only I couldn't have said them all. This is a project to reject, and I urge the council to turn it down.
Thank you, Ms. Carlson. Next,
Kira Kelly.
Thank you. I'm asking for your vote against Horizon Realty's 17-story luxury high-rise. Which will replace one of the few still successful stretches in downtown Evanston during this difficult time, displace or shutter one of the most well-known restaurants in town, which is Found, eliminate 6 storefronts that are available to independent businesses, and a pleasant outdoor dining area, which has become more and more important. In my opinion, the last thing we need to do is take away one draw for people to come to struggling downtown and replace it with a unneeded half-block long luxury high-rise. Please consider the development is particularly unacceptable to the point that the Plan Commission and DAPR recommend that you deny approval of it. The Plan Commission even gave the developers a second chance to come back with a modified proposal answering to their concerns, and they did not sufficiently do so. The developers submitted their proposal days before the new inclusionary housing ordinance went into effect, thus circumventing a higher contribution to Evanston's Affordable Housing Fund. I asked them publicly if they would consider following the new IHO, as that is certainly a priority in our town, and they declined. And this is permitted, we know, but I believe we can do better. The development's 26-foot curb cut into our $13 million award-winning protected bike lane will diminish it and cause safety issues with cars, bikes, and pedestrians at a busy and confusing spot. Please also consider that upzoning and luxury rentals are contributing to making Evanston less affordable, driving up rents, helping to fuel gentrification, and pricing longtime residents out of town, as we are witnessing. Research studies and papers have found this to be the case that I would be happy to forward you. This would be the 4th luxury rental high-rise approved by council in the last few years, and we are oversaturated. The city-funded April 2020 report by Jones, Lang, and LaSalle found, quote, multifamily residential buildings in the competitive, which is the luxury set, have seen increases in asking rents. And
Ms. Kelly, can you wrap it up? Ms. Kelly, you just froze.
Or units in Evanston. Finally, I realize there's a budget crunch and property taxes are on the docket, but I'm with Alderman Sufferton. I would rather do without some services, especially during COVID. There's a lot less happening, and I think we can make do in other ways. Okay, thank you very much, and I hope that you vote against this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Neiden, who have we got next? You want to name the next 3 people?
Last speaker is Sue Lobach, and then don't forget Dennis Harder is going to speak.
Right. Sue, you're muted.
I think I unmuted at the same time that Johanna did, so
Okay,
sorry
we
about that.
can hear you now.
Okay, I'm Sue Lullbach. I work at Connections for the Homeless and lead a coalition called Joining Forces for Affordable Housing. We are opposed to the Chicago Avenue development by Horizon, specifically because of the lack of affordable housing in it. According to the Sawgrass feasibility study for senior assisted living provided to City Council on May of 2019, there is projected to be a gap of 3,235 affordable residential units for seniors in Evanston by 2024. At the same time, according to the asset analysis performed for the city by Jones Lang LaSalle and presented in April of 2020, more than 500 market rate units have entered the market since the beginning of 2019, the two newest of which sit at 40% vacancy, indicating that the market has been slow to absorb market rate units. While this means that there are probably market rate units available for senior citizens who can afford them, there is nothing available for senior citizens who cannot afford them. Since the Marion first initiated its proposal around 3 years ago, new information has become available through the Sawgrass Partners study and the Jones Lang LaSalle report. And in addition to this new information, the world has changed since then with the advent of the pandemic. According to the City of Evanston's Economic Development Department, the need now must be to preserve people's well-being. We agree. Therefore, Joining Forces requests that the Planning and Development Committee deny the current proposal from the Horizon, and if they do approve it, that you insist that affordable units be included in the development as a way to provide public benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Mr. Harder. Sorry, everyone.
Do you have my name on the list? I think I signed up this morning. Candy Heaphy?
Do we have, go ahead, Ms. Heaphy. We're fine.
Okay. Here, I will try to make myself visible here. Start video. Oh, unable to start video. The host has stopped it. Okay, well, I'll just read it. My name is Candy Heaphy, and I live at 1616 Hinman Avenue. I look out at the side of the church, and I'm right behind our building backs up to the second Marion building. As we all know, the proposed luxury condo building is related to the Marion that occupies a good portion of Chicago Avenue, although it's twice the height and it doesn't really seem like it's built to be part of it. I have two big problems with it. It's very out of scale and visually jarring, and it is 17 stories, as many people have said, where the tallest buildings are 8 to 9 stories. It bothers me that the proposal disregards the intent of the zoning law that defines the east side of Chicago Avenue as a transition zone. By disregarding the intent of the law is to disrespect the people who live in this area, like me, who moved here because it is supposed to be protected by zoning. The park edge across the street is in a different zone, so should not be compared. The plans that were shown publicly, I was kind of amused that the developers showed large buildings sort of marching from here into Chicago. But I think the others may not have been in transition areas. Those of us who live here rely on the intent of the zoning laws and their enforcement. We want to protect the feel of our neighborhood, and because of this, we implore you to reject this proposal. If Horizon developers were to submit a design that is in keeping with the rest of the block, I would support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So now, Mr. Harder, are you going to be making your 10-minute presentation for us?
I can do that now. Will there be a speaker from the developer?
Yes, the developer is going to be making a 10-minute presentation as well. So what we could do is the committee can move, we could move the ordinance and then have you speak and then have the developer speak.
Whichever the committee prefers.
I think if we could do that, that would be preferable to my mind. So it's more, then you're teed up directly with the developer. So would someone like to move either P2 or P3?
Alderman Nguyen, this
Yes.
is speaking. I also signed up to make public comment. Is there any way I could do so now?
Yes, but I'm going to have you, Ms. Washburn, be the last person because we do really want to get to the discussion. So if you could just take 2 minutes, that would be great.
I can make it very quick. Thank you so much for agreeing to let me speak. I just wanted to bring attention to the petition that we have in response to this vote. We urge the Planning and Development Committee to vote no on this plan development. We have 625 supporters as of this moment. And this is also in regards to storied history of this developer's issue with customer service, whether that's suing a customer because of a tweet that they did not like, where a customer had tweeted, a tenant had tweeted mold in their building. And then they went ahead and sued them for $50,000. They also had a lawsuit brought against them in their Uptown location for discrimination against immigrant senior citizens. We want to bring this to the committee's attention and make sure that this is voted no, so that our residents don't have to deal with the same type of thing. I know that they're already in Evanston, which is something that we have to deal with, but we don't want to extend this any further. Thank you.
Ms. Washburn, have you submitted your petition to the city or to the city staff?
I did. I submitted it about 2 or 3 days ago.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll make sure that's part of the record then.
Thank you.
Okay, so now committee would want, yes, Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I'm going to, this is in my ward. I just want everyone to understand that. I'm going to suggest that we take P3 first.
Okay.
And I am going to recommend and make a motion to deny.
Is there a second? So at least we can start discussion?
Second.
Okay. All right. Now, Mr. Harder, why don't we have your 10-minute presentation and then we'll have a 10-minute presentation from the representative from Horizon.
Thank you. My name is Dennis Harder. I'm a resident and president of the Condominium Association at 522 Church Street, which building is within the same block as the proposed planned development. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to speak to the committee this evening. Although the detailed opinions and perspectives below are mine, they are to an overwhelming extent consistent with those of my fellow owners at 522 Church, as well as groups and individuals with whom I have communicated about the proposed project, many of whom have spoken today. What I will be saying is in part a summary of what previous speakers have stated today, and in part a solid rationale for rejecting the proposal. I retired after 40 plus years in city planning and real estate, having worked 15 years to Chicago Department of Planning, 6 years as a zoning and planning consultant, and 20 years as a real estate developer, and having taught a graduate real estate development course at Roosevelt University in the Loop for 10 years. In both my public and private sector work, I dealt with mixed-use development plans for many sites similar to the one currently under discussion. Sometimes as a developer, I advocated approval in relation to established community standards and practices in the public forum. Other times I evaluated proposals using those same standards and practices and advised public bodies like this one. I am opposed to approval of this plan development. I have looked at each of the developers' 4 proposals for the site put forth since 2017. The initial proposal for a 260-foot, 215-unit building with an above-grade parking structure generated substantial negative feedback from city staff, neighborhood residents, and community interest groups. That feedback was perhaps the main reason the developer issued a new proposal for the site in May 2018. City staff analyzed the May 2018 proposal within the context of the city's planning and zoning frameworks and the plan development process, identifying numerous issues and concerns, including the site, The organization of spaces and circulation patterns at the ground level, the project generated potential conflicts and undesirable conditions, particularly, but not exclusively, with pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicular interaction on Chicago Avenue side of the site, and vehicular operations in the alley to the east of the site. On size, the proposed unit count, building height, and floor area ratio were all noted to be significantly greater than the base planning and zoning frameworks for the site would allow. Community benefits. The relationship between the amount of benefit the community would receive from the project versus the types and amounts of relief from zoning requirements the developer was seeking was noted as being out of balance the wrong way, that is, in favor of the developer. And further, that some of the items identified as community benefits were not such because they are required to be provided anyway. The following is my understanding of what happened subsequently as the proposed project moved through both formal review with the Design and Project Review Committee and the Plan Commission and informal discussion with interested parties. First, local residents and community interests had strong reactions to the first proposal because of its bulk and insensitivity to the locale. They saw that as revised proposals appeared and public hearing schedule emerged, the developer was determined to redevelop the site. Accordingly, they began to share information and perspectives and to participate in informal, even developer-initiated discussions, as well as the formal public hearings as parts of the development review process. My remarks today have been significantly improved by concepts and perspectives provided by other community individuals and interests. Second, the May 2018 proposal never came to a public hearing. Rather, the developer submitted a revised plan in December 2018, and it was that late 2018 proposal that was reviewed by the Design and Project Review Committee and discussed at its hearing in September 2019. DAPR voted unanimously to recommend to the Plan Commission that the project proposal be denied, noting that the site plan had not changed substantially, leaving many important issues unresolved. The size of the project was increased substantially from the May 2018 version in terms of unit count, 240 versus 156, height, 212 feet versus 145, and floor area ratio, 11.6 versus 7.9. These changes raise questions about how big a project should be allowed to get in the transition district embracing the site, and about how big the asks for relief from the base planning and zoning framework standards should be allowed to get. And third, the character and amount of the public benefit items were insufficient to justify the requested relief. In April 2020, the developer issued another revision to the proposed plan development to bring to a hearing before the Plan Commission. This modification reduced the number of units from 240 to 215, reduced the height from 212 to 185 feet, and reduced the floor area ratio from 11.6 to 10.4. The Plan Commission conducted a hearing in September 2020 on this revised proposal, and then it voted to recommend to the City Council that the proposal be denied. At the core of the Plan Commission denial was the concept that beyond still obvious problems inherent in the proposed site plan, the proposed plan development did not respect the city's planning framework and zoning ordinance provisions applicable to the development site, which is in a transition zone between the higher downtown density to the west and the lower neighborhood scale density to the east. The commission further rejected the developer's argument that the public benefits were sufficient to justify its increased density asks within the plan development process. In summary, as the developer moved its proposal through the public approval process, it made only modest changes to the ground level site plan, leaving significant issues unresolved, while it increased the size of the project substantially without making a serious change in the proposed public benefits package. Essentially, I believe the changes that followed the May 2018 proposal were insufficiently responsive to the site plan concerns and grossly insensitive and very aggressive in relation to the established planning and zoning frameworks for the site. It can be argued that because of extraordinary differences between what the developer wants to build and what the city's existing planning and zoning frameworks allow, the developer is asking the city to use the plan development process in a manner for which it was not intended, to permit a project of this magnitude in this location. A change in the zoning for the district not just for the lot, should be first considered. Another way to say this, the plan development process should not be used to bring extraordinary zoning decisions in through the back door. And the recommendations of the City Development Project Review Committee and the Plan Commission substantiate this. Further, I suggest that the recent proposal by the developer concerning the definition of community as applied to who would receive certain benefits generated by an approved plan development should have no bearing on the decision to approve or reject the proposal for this site. The developer's relabeling proposal doesn't appear to include any substantial change to the overall public benefits to come from the project. This means that the developer's proposed community benefit package remains inadequate in its relation to the asks for relief from planning and zoning parameters applicable to the project site, a finding substantiated by the recommendations of DAPR and the Plan Commission. By attempting to use the plan development process to affect major zoning changes for that site, and by attempting to revise the definition of community that would receive benefit from that plan development project, the developer of the 1621 Chicago site is asking the city to change the rules for the game during the game itself. In keeping with its past practices and to maintain a high level of trust with its constituents, it is very important that the Evanston City Council base its real estate development related decisions on pre-established planning and zoning frameworks, which were the result of inclusive, extensive, even exhaustive community-wide decision processes. I believe the developer should not be pursuing and the city should not be entertaining approval of the current proposal for the site through the site-specific plan development process without first having considered whether there should be changes to the existing planning framework and zoning designations for the transition district within which the 1621 Chicago site is located. However, since the proposal is currently moving through the plan development process, I urge the City Council to deny approval of the proposal based on the content of the developer's proposal and the negative recommendations of DAPR and the Plan Commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harder. All right, Ms. Nyden, who are we hearing from the developer?
I am not sure if it's David Meek or somebody else. Is there somebody from the development team on the call that is prepared to present?
This is Tim Kent, and we're going to have a variety of speakers starting with Jeff Michael. If you can start our screen. And then we can share our screen to give a presentation, is that correct?
Yes, you should be able to do that.
Okay.
They can see me also. Camera's on.
Yep, camera's on.
All set?
Yes,
Okay.
we've got you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Michael, and I'd like to thank the members of the Planning and Development Committee for your time this evening, an opportunity to present to you. I have a prepared remarks that I want to make. I'd be remiss if I didn't first address the comments that were made by Mr. Sutton. He made some, what I thought were pretty inflammatory and unfounded and uncalled for discriminatory allegations against us, my company. And I don't take that lightly. It was completely inappropriate. They were made without basis. And Mr. Sutton, if you're still out there watching, you should be ashamed of yourself. Thank you, I apologize for that.
Okay, Mr. Michael, I think we should just stick to the presentation.
That is appropriate behavior for this call.
I have the floor now. I have the floor.
Hello, everyone. Mr. Michael, let's just get to your presentation, please.
Absolutely. So, along with Danny Michael, we are the principals of Horizon Realty Group and the developers and the proud owners of the Marion Independent Living Community and the applicants of the proposed legacy. In the interest of time, I'm going to allow my team to introduce themselves as they present later this evening. My message to you is a very simple one. Seize on the opportunity presented to you this evening. As you will see from the presentation, my team has spent countless hours and over 3 years putting together this wonderful project in Evanston. I urge you to recognize the overwhelming financial and trickle-down benefits that will accrue to the residents of Evanston. Our fiscal impact analysis yields a net present value of over $9 million in future streams of tax and revenues to this community. The alternative to the proposed project is to attempt to lease the existing, outdated, and highly unremarkable retail center to the next smoke shop, dry cleaners, cell company, or nail salon that's willing to take a chance on that location. Most likely not to occur for another 24 to 36 months from now, if we're lucky. So please do not get lost in the weeds of the objections presented at the cost of an overwhelming benefit to a very weak block of Chicago Avenue. For those that are not familiar with me or my company, I want to provide you with some background about who we are and why we're doing this. How do I advance this? Advance that for me? That's what I did. Oh, excuse me. I'll just use the arrow there. Okay. Horizon Realty Group is a family-owned and operated real estate company. Over the course of the last 35 years, we've acquired and renovated over 2,000 apartments throughout Chicago's neighborhoods. Our focus is on purchasing neglected properties in need of renovation and improving them. We've been fortunate enough to follow this model for many years, which eventually led us to here in Evanston, and more specifically to the Marion, where in fact my parents were actually married in 1969. We purchased the Marion, a sorely neglected, sorry, I'm gonna advance this. We purchased the Marion, a sorely neglected retirement community in 2012. While it may not have shown from the exterior, the interior and the living conditions that it provided for our local seniors was an absolute atrocity. When we toured this site, we knew we had to restore it to its original glory. What transpired thereafter was an infusion of $40 million of our own money with the focus of building and providing luxury senior living accommodation for the local seniors. In 2015, we opened a new tower, which was a ground-up development of 65 additional units connected to the Marion's old tower. Today, the Marion speaks for itself, and like with all of our projects, it's been a labor of love. The Marion is currently home to about 130 seniors, which will eventually be over 200 seniors. It plays host to local brides and grooms, mitzvahs, parties. It serves the most amazing meals, provides unmatched services, and will remain a permanent fixture not only in Evanston community, but in the Michael family. So why are we here tonight? Because we had a vision for this block of Chicago Avenue, and it didn't end with the Marion, but it only began with it. In addition to the Marion, we own the commercial retail property to the north. That retail center is tired, it's mostly vacant, and has seen its best years already. In our view, it represents a missing tooth in an otherwise beautiful block of Chicago Avenue. Our vision is to build a beautifully designed and luxurious residential building aimed at active senior living. We want to build upon what has already been started by us, the Mather, the Levy Center, Ali Institute, Northwestern University, and the city at large. It will change the appearance of this block for the better and provide a level of living experience and services for seniors that simply doesn't exist in Evanston. The objective of this project is to provide a much desired luxury living option to empty nesters and those residents that are seeking a higher end living experience that's not offered right now in Evanston. As you may have known, we've gone through several iterations of this building design, and each time we've learned a lot from the constructive criticism we've received, as well as the adoration that we've also received. We have responded in kind by significantly reducing the size of the original proposal, fortifying our public benefits offerings, and addressing design concerns from various stakeholders. You're going to hear objections, you already heard some of them, and they can be summarized in 4 basic categories. Number 1, the ask of the building is egregious. That's an argument that ignores the detail of the zoning code and development allowances that are available, and my architect will address that more fully in his remarks. Number 2, the project is in contravention of the transition zone in which it lies. Unfortunately, the intended transition zone is in name only. It's a legal fiction which we did not create. In reality, there are other buildings east of our building which destroy any sense of a real transition zone in this area. So the first 2 objections are mere form over substance arguments. Third, the public benefits are insufficient. Our public benefits package includes the largest cash contribution to the city's coffers than any other proposed development in Evanston ever, $300,000. The second largest contribution to the Affordable Housing Fund, over $2 million, 2.15 to be exact, and the first ever direct contribution to the newly created Reparations Fund. Number 4, we don't want a curb cut at this location. Our ingress-egress traffic plan presents a far better, safer, and less taxing traffic plan with our novel Port Cochere than any potential benefit of not creating one more curb cut in a bicycle lane that already has over 20 curb cuts and that have a mere fraction of the safety engineering that our proposed curb cut will have. Our presentation this evening will refute each of these objections with a rational and thoughtful response, and I urge you to consider that no project is ever perfect. Our presentation will show that the objections pale in comparison to the overwhelming economic and fiscal benefits of this project. With that said, I'd like to turn it over to Jonathan Furman.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you to members of the Planning and Development Committee. I'm Jonathan Perman. I represent Horizon Realty Group. We're going to take you through some photos very quickly. Here is what the 1600 block of Chicago Avenue looks like now. This is an aerial view which shows from the north. And one of the things that I wanted to point out besides the proposed building here is that our vision is that the addition of this building completes what in effect will be a 4-building senior campus with the already Marion at Davis and Chicago Avenue, the Mather, 1 block to the east, and the Georgian also a block to the east. And put together, it represents a significant senior living option for Evanstonians as well as those that want to come to Evanston. Here's a view of what the final product would look like from the ground floor. You can see that we would be adding back a major retail or restaurant, and in fact, there would be no diminution of any retail in terms of square footage compared to what is there now. Also, looking over to the north is the proposed porte-cochere entryway and exit to the garage, which we will talk about later. This is a view looking from the northwest with the Marion to the right, south. Looking down Chicago Avenue to the south with the Park Evanston, a 24-story building across the street. And here from the east, how the building would compare to some of the other larger structures already in downtown Evanston, most of those, of course, being in the D3 zone. This is a look at from the west, looking east. And one of the things that we wanted to point out is that this notion of a transition, as Jeff mentioned, is really not the case in terms of physical reality. The 500 Davis building, for example, is at twice the height of what the permitted maximum with development allowances in a D1. The Mather in an R6 is about 45% higher higher than the maximum development allowance for an R6, whereas we are proposing a 26% increase above the 145-foot max with development allowances, and we'll show you some of the comparisons later. This is looking to the north with the Marion already established on your right. This we want to move is intended to show you that one of the criticisms that we often hear when any major development project is brought to Evanston is that Evanston is too crowded, there's too many people, there's too much traffic. But the fact is that Evanston in the last 38 years has only grown by 0.5%. And the 338 people that we would be bringing to Evanston essentially replaces the loss replaces the loss that Evanston experienced since 2000. The development challenges, as we looked at this parcel, are fourfold. Given the strong demand for senior housing, could we create a critical mass of units to justify our risk of investment? Design an aesthetically pleasing building with the land that's available. Number 3, engineer a transportation management program that balances and meets the expectations and the needs of auto traffic, parking, pedestrians, and bicycles. And finally, how to deal with a congested, narrow commercial alley that is certainly not acceptable for seniors and makes entry and egress to a garage from that point really impossible. We're looking for 4 development allowances, as you know, in terms of height, density, FAR, and the parking of 85 underground spaces. We'll be doing all underground, something rather unusual for developments. And if there is greater demand for parking, we would lease spaces in the city's Church Street garage, which operates at about 50% capacity. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Tim Kent from Papa George Hames, who will take you through the D4 zoning.
Thanks, Jonathan. This will be very brief. A lot has been said about the proposed height of the project in this zoning district. In the D4 district, as you know, 105 feet is the allowed maximum. However, there are development allowances that allow the project to be extended to 145 feet. There's also a stipulation that if parking is provided above grade, that the first
I'm
four
sorry,
levels.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but you have about 1 minute left.
Okay,
So if
we're
you
going to
want
go.
summarize, that would
Okay,
be
we'll go as fast as we can here. With 185 feet is actually something that the crafters of the zoning ordinance could have foreseen on this block. And the proposed building, our proposed building is 185 feet tall as well. So they're exactly the same. The difference is that we are putting our parking below grade at great expense to avoid having the unsightly parking put above grade. But it's exactly the same height. 185 feet is proposed, and 185 feet is allowed with development allowances in this zoning district. That's an important point to make. Also, we see, looking from the east to the west, we see the Mather, we see the 500 Davis in the foreground, and we see the other buildings of downtown Evanston in the background, including the recently approved 601 Davis at 252 feet. This project is shorter than that at 185. I'm going to skip this slide and talk quickly about the ground floor. We have retail that's coming back. It could be a restaurant. There will be, if there is a restaurant, there will be outdoor dining there. We've worked carefully with the neighbors to ensure that the alley is taken care of in terms of loading. And then we also have a porte cochere, as has been mentioned, where Uber and Lyft and taxis can be brought inside and not double park on Chicago Avenue. We think this is the appropriate solution for this project. This also serves as the egress and ingress for the parking that is below grade.
All right.
This is the condition of the alley.
Mr. Kent, your time is officially up, but I will let you wrap it up.
Okay, we've just got a couple more things here. So this is the condition of the alley, which we feel is not appropriate to be used, as was insisted upon by city staff. This is not appropriate to be used as the front door of the main vehicular entry to the project. As you can see here, it's frequently blocked, and it's just not conducive to serve as a front door, especially for seniors. And I won't read these points, but we also think that if we were to bring people around to the alley and not have the entry from Chicago Avenue, that there would be an environmental cost because it would force drivers to go around the block in order to exit and enter the project, and that would, over time, be significant.
I really do need you to wrap it up, to be fair.
Okay.
Alderwoman Nguyen, if we could just make two more points, and we will wrap it up. With respect to curb cuts, which has been the subject of a lot of discussion at different parts of the planning process, we want to point out that there are in fact 20 existing curb cuts along the cycle track from downtown Evanston all the way up to almost the Wilmette border, most of which do not have very strong warnings or signage, even at Lighthouse Beach where there are children. The other point we want to make is that this would be the second smallest garage in downtown with a curb cut. The point being that all curb cuts are not the same, and so it will not have the kind of traffic going on as you have, say, at the Sherman Plaza and the public parking garage there. With respect to project benefits, we've talked about those. I want to make one final point about our idea to contribute to the reparations fund. Number one, as we saw it, we're building housing here in Evanston, new housing for seniors. The reparations fund over the last few months, committee has talked about utilizing their dollars that they get contributed and from the cannabis tax to housing. And so we saw a real nexus there between what we're doing and what the reparations fund is intended for. The other point that I want to make—
I really have allowed you to go much further than the 10 minutes that the city staff had told you about. All right.
Okay. Well,
So
then,
I think you really need to wrap up in the next 10 seconds.
okay. So Originally, we had proposed to do a $300,000 cash contribution. What we realize is that for the most part, cash contributions that have been put in with development projects generally go to projects that go to activities and are used for the assistance in the immediate block or the neighborhood of that project. Our belief is that public benefits should go to the entire city. And given that, we thought, what a better way to do that than to offer it to the reparations fund.
All right,
At
thank
the
you.
end of the day, that's up to the city council if they want to accept.
It is.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Perman. Okay. Can we have the screen back up so I can see the committee? Okay. Committee, we've heard public comment and we've heard the two presentations. I'm looking for hands to start the discussion, if we're going to have one. Alderman Wilson.
Thank you. I certainly appreciate the work that was done on the existing building. It's beautifully performed. It's a great improvement, but this extension of the development, I could go through a long list of reasons, but I think they've already been probably discussed. It's just, it's not working for me. It doesn't seem to really be working for the community. Our staff doesn't feel comfortable with it. This kind of deviation from the standards, to me, it would be of interest if there was some sort of game-changing, evolution or really remarkable benefit to the community. And while we certainly, housing is important and we need that, this just doesn't really fit. And that's my short version on that. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Alderman Fisk.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, first of all, I want to thank the community because, once again, they've done their homework. They understand the problems inherent in this development. We've had 3 years of looking at the various iterations of this development, and there's just nothing here that, to my mind, meets the standards in our zoning ordinance that we should apply. I believe that's what the Plan Commission said. I watched the entire Plan Commission meeting and absolutely agree with their determination. I want to say one thing about transitional zones. I mean, our downtown is very compact and small. The transition zone on the east side of Chicago Avenue has historically played a very important role in this. And it's been respected over the years, even with the zoning that's in place. And as an example, I'll cite the Hyatt Hotel that is surrounded by condo and co-op buildings. And that was built as of right under our existing zoning. It's at 10 stories, 10 stories. And it fits in with the community. I'm very proud that we stood by and the developer there and got that building built because it's really important that we support the east side of Chicago Avenue. And even though there are buildings, the Mather, for example, and some other buildings that may push that a little bit, the neighborhood to the east has been respected all along. And I think that when we're in transition zones, we need to do one other thing, and that is we need to walk around the building. I mean, when the developers first came and they had the idea of doing the building, I asked them to go and stand on Hinman Avenue and look at the east side of Chicago Avenue through the back door, if you will, and understand the landmark First Methodist Church and understand the impact that a large building on that site would have on the community to the east. And I have not seen any pictures in the presentation that show that they've given that any more thought in this latest iteration. It does not meet the standards. It far exceeds any sort of justification for it. I do not support it. thank the neighbors. And I hope that members also will see that this is not the right building for this location.
All right, thank you, Alderman Fisk. Alderman Rainey?
Alderman Fisk, do you see a building for this location? Do you see development at this location?
Alderman Rainey, what we're asked to do tonight, I mean, I hope that they will come back.
I'm not
What-
talking about
yeah,
tonight, talking about going forward. Do you see that there is a right building for this location?
I think that that's certainly possible. I mean, we can't say that there's no development on a developable site, but this is very problematic. I mean, my own personal opinion is that when the property was acquired, it would have made sense to look at the entire length of the property as a whole and figure out what development for the entire site would have been appropriate. I think that this is sort of like painting yourself into a corner, and it's unfortunate. But I'm sure that that taking another look at it will, and the neighbors certainly have said that if it's appropriate, and that was mentioned in comments tonight, if an appropriate development can be found for the site, then they would support that.
I mean, we have Evanston Place and we have the North Shore. I mean, the North Shore Hotel was a pretty big building on Chicago Avenue. And now we have the Marion, you know, a refigured North Shore Hotel. I mean, so there are large buildings on Chicago Avenue.
We're talking
on the east side. I mean, on the east side.
The North Shore Hotel was built. There was always been a hotel on that site, and the Avenue House was much, much smaller. The North Shore Hotel was the first larger development in downtown Evanston. So that few years later, along came the Orrington, and it was when downtown Evanston really was evolving. And again, I think that I'm sure that the talented architects involved with the people who own the Marion can come up with something wonderful that fits in with zoning and respects the surrounding neighborhood. But this does not.
I want to say one more thing, Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, go ahead.
The residents who made comments alluding to the fact that the developers were paying to play on the reparations. When I first heard about the reparations commitment from the developers, I never put those two items together. I think the reparations committee was thrilled to hear that somebody wanted to make a commitment, a financial commitment to the reparations project. We are way beyond being paid to play. And it really was quite insulting. And I don't believe, having known Jonathan Perman for way over 20 years, that he was bribing us in any way, shape, or form. So having said that, I'm sure the members of the council know that we were not being taken for a ride on that one. But that sort of hurts to hear our constituents say that, because it was very far from the truth.
Yes, Alderman Rue Simmons, you haven't spoken yet, and then Alderman Fisk.
Well, it seems Alderman Fisk had a response to Alderman Rainey, so I'll go after Alderman Fisk.
Okay, Alderman Fisk.
Alderman Rainey, thank you for your comments. I'm glad to hear that the reparations committee did not invite the Marion owners to come and present at reparations. I think that
we did. No, we did. We did.
Well, I think we all need to understand the optics of that look very bad. I mean, outside of this development, I think anyone would welcome donations to the reparations committee. But paired with this development, it does look to the community. And remember, there's a community out here who is observing everything that we do, and it just looks bad. And I absolutely have had a nice relationship with Jonathan Perman, but he's been around for a long time, and I think that he understands that maybe this was not the right approach to take. And I I'm sorry that for whatever reason, they decided to do that, but I think the optics of it are terrible. It puts the council in a very difficult place of looking like it's, that there are different standards. I won't say anything more than that. You get my drift, but I was very upset to hear that. And I understand absolutely that the community would be just beside themselves to think that that was the kind of thing that that we would even entertain. So I just wanted to say that.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Thank you. So I only just met Mr. Perman, just in this recommendation or introduction as using public benefit to fund reparation. And I really appreciated the call, and I absolutely appreciated his presentation to the committee. I think we all did. One thing we do know is that although we have an incredible commitment of a $10 million is not enough to bridge the disparities and deal with the housing disparities and racial wealth divide and so on that we have here in this city. So I took it as a very thoughtful way to show that Mr. Perman was paying attention to the things that we say we value here in Evanston, which includes our disparities. So thank you to Mr. Perman for showing up. I'm absolutely heartbroken that there is a consensus in the community that we would make a decision on such a zoning decision or development decision based on an offer of support for anything. And so that's unfortunate. I think that the argument against it or the argument of opposition is strong enough without needing to insult myself and my colleagues on the committee, suggesting that there was in any way an inappropriate presentation made. Whether he was invited or he invited himself, he showed up. It was the appropriate place for him to make a recommendation on ways that we might further fund reparations. So with that said, thank you, Mr. Perman, and thank you to the developers and the owners for thinking about the things that we value here in Evanston. Now, I am absolutely professional and mature enough to separate that conversation from the viability of this development. It is clear that it has not passed commission. Our staff has denied it. There is no community support. I'm surprised we haven't even heard from the business community. I thought the argument would have been that the 300 or so new residents would help stimulate economic activity in a very down economy. But I've heard nothing from the business community. I've also just asked staff. I haven't heard anything from the business community. If there's anything that I've overlooked in terms of advocacy for support, can staff or Alderman Fisk or Alderman Rainey, anyone that's tuned into this, maybe more so than me, let me know. But then I want to say that we have a staff that is very well educated and trained. We pay them very handsomely to sit on DAFR and have a professional opinion on what's right and safe for development in our city. And it seems that it has been denied at DAFR. It seems that it's been denied on a committee of other professionals that we have appointed to give oversight. So again, I'm absolutely insulted at the recommendation that it was inappropriate for them to talk about reparations, but I'm having a hard time finding any place to support this development. So I'm asking right now if staff can let me know if I have missed out on any correspondence, communication from the Chamber of Commerce, any of the business districts downtown, any other engagement from residents or constituents or other stakeholders in the community that may have been in support of this project.
Alderman Simmons, we generally have not received endorsements or support from either downtown Evanston or the Chamber of Commerce. They've often not, as an organization, provided those direct support statements. I think many of you have received the emails I've gotten over the past week or so, and I forwarded them to the entire city council on.
So we have, Director, have letters of support or not support for developments downtown. I can remember hearing from Dan and other folks that own businesses downtown. I'm asking, is anyone on council or staff aware of any type of feedback in support or in opposition of this development?
From the business community, Alderman Ruth Simmons?
Yes.
I have not received any comments in support of this from the business community. Alderman Rainey?
I received all the mail that you all received against this project, and one letter from one of my constituents in real solid support of the development. Just one.
Okay.
I received that one too. Yeah. So with that, I would like to just touch on this, and this probably isn't the place, but since we had all these public statements that are going to be on record forever, suggesting that reparations discussion was inappropriate, Alderman Rainey and myself some time ago recommended that we look at public benefit beyond the direct vicinity of the planned development. And I don't know where that referral went, if it's just dormant, if we need to advance it someplace else, but there's no reason why we should continue to have public benefit that only impacts the most direct neighborhood to the planned development, and the need for public benefit is outside of the areas in the city that are more likely to have these types of planned developments that will have the benefit. So I'm making a referral again that we look at advancing that. And I see Alderman Fisk, I'm making a referral again. Director Leonard, I'm hoping that you're getting this and you could take it to the right place for discussion so that we can, I don't know if it's a law, I don't know if we can change it, I don't know if our home rule municipality allows us to do it, but it's something that seems to make sense.
Alderman Ruth Simmons, to that point, we have Attorney Nick Cummings here to speak to this. At first, I'm going to have Ms. Neiden speak to this, but we also have the Corporation Counsel's Office here to talk about this specific issue. I believe we all received a memo that was written by our Corporation Counsel's Office several years ago about this point, that there is case law directly on point. So Ms. Neiden, can you speak first? And then if Nick Cummings, I don't see him, but I know he's on this call, if he can then address this point about the required nexus between a public benefit and a particular development.
Sure. Nick will speak to some of the case law here, but what I think it was about 2 years ago when, or maybe a little bit longer, maybe 3 years ago now, when the Albion development was under proposal, and there were a lot of proposed public benefits that needed to be specific to the site development allowances requested for that particular development, and they had to show that they were the public benefits were mitigating those development allowances. And Michelle Mason-Cup and Mario Tretto prepared a memo that addressed specifically those questions, and I circulated it. I think it was in December 2018, and I've shared that memo again with our current legal counsel, and I think they're prepared to speak to this as a question.
Hi, Mr. Cummings, here you are. Can you speak to this?
Members of the Planning and Development Committee, I'm going to be referring to the memorandum that was written by Michelle Mason-Cup back in, I believe it was 2017. And there's not a definitive list of what's an appropriate public benefit. There's a large list, but there does need to be a nexus between the public benefit and the developer's projected impact. And so dedications of streets, sidewalks, and public ways, impact fees, payments into a public fund, public art, which I know that has actually come up since I've actually been in Evanston, landscaping, open space, infrastructure improvements, electric vehicle charging. All of these things have withstood challenges in terms of public benefits, and they don't seem to be necessarily restricted to the surrounding location of the development, especially when you start talking about infrastructure improvements or transit passes for employees or renters, that sort of thing. Those actually can expand beyond a little bit beyond the site of the development, but there does need to be as Alderman Nguyen indicated, a necessary nexus between the public benefit and the impact of the development. I don't know.
Can you, Mr. Cummings, can you explain that a little bit more? I mean, I've reread the memo and I'm familiar with the case law. I think if you could just talk a little bit about what the court meant by a nexus and how that applies in this case, for instance, or in another case.
Sure, can I take Alderman Rainey's question first real quick? I see your hand.
Alderman Rainey, yeah.
This would have been a contribution to a public fund.
I certainly understand that the contribution to the public fund was one of the ones that I raised, but there has to be, so my understanding, at least with the work that I've been doing with the reparations subcommittee as the law department's liaison to the subcommittee, is that fund is directed at specific residents in the city of Evanston, and it's a race-based program. There doesn't seem to be that nexus based upon the case law that we're referencing in this particular memo. That public benefit is generally benefiting more generally and more broadly the public with respect to the cases that are cited in the memo. So there has to be a proportionality between the developer's projected impact and what we are getting back. And it can't be rough. It actually has to be a little more exact. So it would really depend upon the impact that this particular development had on the Evanston community. And listening to some of the comments and some of the discussion and the presentation that's been on tonight, I don't know if there's a relationship, and I can't necessarily speak to the fact that there is a sufficient proportionality between the mission of the reparations fund and the impact that this development would have on the city.
All right, thank you. Alderman Rees-Simmons, did you have your hand up?
I did, thank you. So I would argue that the direct, and I don't remember what term you just used, but relationship to the impact on our city of that development and the relevance to the particular public fund that they were recommending contributing to is that it's 100% market rate. And we have affordable housing deficit, and that's largely the goals of reparation. We have a declining Black population, and we have an entire city that's devastated by COVID financially. So it seems to be a direct impact on the city that it's going to be providing more market rate, unaffordable housing in a city that says it values affordable housing. So then additionally, one other, and I don't know where this project is going to go, but I do have some concerns that the inclusionary housing compliance is dated with a outdated inclusionary housing outline. So I would definitely expect that the developer would at least make a contribution in line with what our current inclusionary housing goals are as well.
Alderman Simmons, I can't say that I disagree with your analysis. I just cannot say at this time, because I would need to do additional research in addition to what Ms. Mason-Cup has done. I would need to do additional research to see if it actually fits within the rubric of what we've already researched for reparations, which means that in order to have this race-based program, it has to be narrowly tailored in order for it to withstand any sort of challenge. The other thing I will say in relation to the memorandum is public benefits are usually suggested or requested or required by the city and not necessarily offered by the developer. And so it'd be a little different if the city made it sort of like a requirement, such as like your inclusionary housing requirement in the code. But that's not what my understanding is what's been going on here, at least based on the comments and also being present at the subcommittee meeting on last Friday.
Okay, all right, thank you. Seeing no other hands, anyone else on the committee? before we take a vote, I'd like to just offer my comments as chair. I also am planning to, I share in the opposition to this project. I think that its size is not proportional. Its massing is not proportional to the site. Its unit count is significantly above what is permitted in the standards. Its floor area ratio is almost twice what is permitted in this district. And I do think when you look at what some of these newer buildings, as Alderman Fisk referenced, the newer building that the Marion built not too long ago, and the hotel further south on Chicago Avenue, both of those fit in seamlessly into the architectural context and the transition zone. When I look at this site, the massing of this building, it looks enormous. And you can see it achieve that goal by its floor area ratio and increasing its unit count. One of my favorite parts of this entire area is that I believe it's the 522 church building. I'm not sure when it was built. If you look at the architecture of the 522 building, it absolutely echoes the Methodist Church. If you drive down Church Street, you'll see that the architect of 522 shaped that building to match the Methodist Church. That's good architecture. That building blends in perfectly. I do think that this site could be developed in so many better ways than it is. They're trying to put too much on too little. And this east side of Chicago Avenue is supposed to be a transition zone. So perhaps you could be this tall, but you can't be this big. You can't be this large from a massing standpoint. And if we don't respect the barriers and the boundaries that we have, we can't live next to them. I mean, I am someone who lives on the west side of Hinman Avenue. I have only an alley that separates my home, single family home, from intense commercial. But that commercial is something that we've all learned to live with. But I also know that boundary won't change. I mean, there won't be something built there that I don't expect. And so that's why it's possible here in Evanston that we are able to have the community that we have, that we respect these boundaries. We respect what can be built in these areas, and then we count on that. And that's how we all continue to live and work together. So I also would like to speak to the benefits. I don't think they're sufficient to match the density of this building. I don't think this building is so sensational that we are that the small amount of benefits, and I'm speaking of the benefits that they were talking about in the proposal. I'm not speaking about the reparations because I don't believe that can be called a public benefit. I don't think when we see what we've received from other buildings in terms of benefits, I don't think that this building has presented sufficient to make up for the fact that we are doubling the floor area ratio. I don't even know what the multiplier is for the unit count. And I think the potential problems with the alley and the street are so significant, they can't be overcome. So I join in the other members of the council and DAPR and the Plan Commission in saying in my opposition to this. Alderman Revelle.
Well, since I haven't said anything in this, I do want to just basically agree with you, Chair Wynn, and my colleagues. Just 3 quick points. The height and density, I think, of the proposed building are really out of scale with a site that does need to be a transition to the adjacent residential neighborhood, and particularly the fact that we've got those historic buildings right to the east. It's troublesome to have another curb cut on Chicago Avenue that would create additional conflict points for vehicles and pedestrians and cyclists, and really disrupt the pedestrian experience along Chicago Avenue. And then thirdly, yeah, the proposed public benefits just really don't match the significant site allowances that are being requested. So I too am going to be voting no.
All right. So I think I see no more hands. So now this is P2. Let me find it.
No, it's P3.
Excuse me, P3. You're right, Alderman Fisk. So I'll just, can you restate it, Alderman Fisk, then, so that we make sure we are voting correctly?
Yes.
Okay, I understand your motion was to recommend
Was
denial.
denied, yes.
Okay.
So, yep.
Yes, Alderman Rue Simmons.
Before we have a motion, did we determine that reparation, I understand this is separate, but did we determine that the public benefit offer to contribute to the reparation fund is not appropriate because it is a racially restricted fund? Is that my understanding?
Sorry.
My statement was that I would need to research to make sure that it would qualify as a public benefit, because the fund is something that right now is structured for a specific set of residents based on race and not on other criteria. I don't know if it's sufficient to serve as a public benefit, and I would need to research that.
So Alderman Rue Simmons, my comment was that I want to make, if we're going to call it a public benefit, I want to make sure that our legal department has properly researched it and determined that we can call it that. And I made my determination about this before Friday's reparations meeting. So I think that I would like us to discuss how is it that we could perhaps, I know I'm moving away from this for a second, but how is it that we can make new developments? Perhaps we need to codify it to say all new developments will contribute X, follow a formula to our reparations fund. And then by codifying it, then we won't get this question. And we also won't put it up to the highest bidder and cause this consternation in the community.
Right.
Alderman Rainey?
I disapprove of that. I don't think we should force anybody to make the contribution. However, I do think we should consider the reparations fund a public fund. And to say it's not a public fund is wrong, because we are putting public dollars into that fund. I think it's a public fund.
Alderman Rainey, I think that this is clearly a topic that we need to have more information and have a better discussion on when.
Not right now.
Yeah, separate from this issue. Okay.
I agree.
So we have a motion that's been seconded, and Alderman Fisk's motion was to recommend denial. So Ms. Nyden, would you call the roll, please, for P3?
So, Madam Chair, could you just clarify that a yes vote is a vote to deny?
That is correct. So a yes vote is a vote to deny, a no vote is a vote to accept. Okay.
Right.
All right. Okay. All right, Ms. Nyden?
Alderman Fisk?
Yes.
Alderman Nguyen?
Yes.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Bruce Simmons?
Yes.
Alderman Sufferton?
Yes.
Alderman Ravel?
Yes.
Alderman Rainey?
Yes.
Recommendation denied.
All right. Okay. Thank you, committee. I think that we have a big topic we want to talk about after this, not in this meeting though. All right. So I want to return to P1.
Madam Chair, could I just interrupt for a minute? Could you just explain to the public what that vote meant? That this will not be going to council tonight?
Yes, thank you, Alderman Fisk. So with that vote of 7-0, this project has failed in committee, and so it will not be moving on to the city council for any action at all. So now I'd like us to deal with P1 and P2. Who would like to take P1? Alderman Fisk?
Could we combine P1 and P2?
I think it might be better since one's a resolution and one's an
Oh,
ordinance.
right, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. So if we go to P1, my motion is not to approve the plat of re-subdivision, to deny the plat of re-subdivision.
Oh, why would you do that?
Okay. Is there a second? I'll second it.
Second.
All right. Alderman Wilson?
So I guess my threshold question would be if the property owner still wants to pursue the subdivision. Because if they don't, then there's no point in doing it. On the other hand, if they want to do the subdivision for perhaps the ability to convey the property to another purchaser who might do something different, something like that, then it would make sense to deal with these two. But I guess I'm interested to know what the applicants have to say, because if they only wanted to do this if 3 was approved, then there's no point in doing the first 2. So are they still here?
Yeah, start video. I'm trying to unmute.
Sorry, Mr. Kent, did you hear what Alderman Wilson had to say?
Oh, here we go. Yes. Hi, my name is David Meek. I'm an attorney for the developer. We would like you to consider the proposed plat of subdivision. There is utility to us in being able to subdivide that parcel out. It's held as a separate tax parcel. It would allow for potential sale to a future developer, to allow for the configuration of that lot. The justifications for it are laid out in the packet. That did receive the support of the Plan Commission. That did receive the support of the DAPR. They saw the utility of it, and we would ask that you consider that favorably, as well as then the appropriate modifications to the plan development that are applicable to the balance of the Marion. So it separates those out as 2 distinct project areas. We understand, obviously, that should we come back with a different proposal for the single-story component of Chicago Avenue, that would be a new application on, some type of project that may or may not come in before you anytime soon, but it would give us the ability to pursue that. And any future project wouldn't need this subdivision and modification to the existing Marion anyway. So we might as well, in our view, take care of that now, because future development would need that. And we have unity of ownership right now, and anybody who would want to come in to buy that lot would want to have this process completed as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Alderman Wilson, did you want to continue?
Yes. So just to complete that thought, my thought, that was my assumption. And then presumably, if we're going to do P1, we would, obviously have to go along with P2 because they can't, tear down the building. Based on the explanation and in furtherance of the idea of actually getting something that's workable and makes sense for the property, I would be interested in going ahead and getting the subdivision done.
Okay. Hold on, we do have, I think we already have a motion on the floor. So let's see, who is next? Alderman Fisk, did you have your hand raised? Yes.
Yeah, I guess I don't see that there would be, if they come back and want to do another project or decide they want to sell the property, that's the proper time for a motion for to re-subdivision to occur. I would like to tie that in with whatever they decide they're going to do next, rather than deciding that tonight. I don't see any harm in that, so that's my position on it.
So is there a motion on the floor for this resolution?
Yeah. Yes, yes, Alderman Fisk she moved the item and I seconded.
Yes.
She moved to deny it, I think.
I moved to deny.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, that's right. You did. Yes. Okay. All right. Seeing no more hands, Ms. Nyden, would you call the roll? So, and let's make sure we understand. A yes is a denial and a no is, do we have to have a vote in the affirmative then on this?
Yeah, then we'd have to do it. Another motion, but let's do this first.
Right, so a yes is agreeing with the denial and a no is not agreeing with the denial, okay? Alderman Ravel, wait, Alderman Ravel, did you?
Well, I guess I'd like a little more discussion because I'm unclear as to why we wouldn't want to go ahead and grant the subdivision.
There's no reason.
It's their right as owners. I mean, to.
I mean, this way they could sell the property. They could sell it to somebody else. As it is, they can't sell it to anybody.
Right, but I mean, whoever comes to us with a development, whether it's the current owners or new owners, we're still going to be looking at it with our eagle eyes the way we always do. So I guess I'm not
Well, somebody could just buy it and not develop it. They could just buy it in restaurants.
sure. Right, yeah.
Who would do that?
Or, I mean, why would we limit the opportunity and not allow for subdivision? Someone could also buy it in a parcel as it is without it being subdivided, or they could buy a new parcel. I don't understand.
Well, if they're together, they have to buy the whole, like, they have to buy the Marion and the rest of the property.
There's no reason. There's no reason not to subdivide.
Okay, let's all, if we could just maintain our order here, then we can get through this. Thank you. Okay, so Ms. Nyden, Alderman Ravel, do you have the information you need?
I think I do.
Okay, all right.
You can come up with some more information for me, right?
Okay, Ms. Nyden, would you call the roll?
Alderman Fisk.
Wait, but is a yes a yes is a no?
Yes. That's,
A yes is approving recommended denial.
Right.
yes.
Oh, sorry, Alderman Fisk.
Mm-hmm. So I said aye.
Aye, thank you. Alderman Nguyen?
No.
Alderman Wilson?
No.
Alderman Simmons?
No.
Alderman Sufferton?
Aye.
Sorry, is that an aye?
Aye.
Alderman Ravel?
No.
Alderman Rainey?
No.
Okay, so the noes have it.
Okay, so now it's,
So I'll move that we approve the re-subdivision.
Second.
P1.
all right, thank you. So Ms. Nyden, would you call the roll on that one?
Alderman Fisk?
No.
Alderman Nguyen?
Yes.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Simmons?
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton?
No.
Alderman Ravel?
Aye.
And Alderman Rainey?
Aye.
Okay, ayes have it.
Okay, so the resolution 87R20 passes on a vote of 5-2. Okay, so then now we move on to our item P2. So Ms. Nyden,
I move to approve. Yeah, I move that we approve the adjustment. If we're subdividing the property, then it has to be adjusted so the numbers play.
Okay. All right, so this is ordinance 98-020 approving a major adjustment to a planned development at 1605 to 1631 Chicago Avenue. Okay, so is there any discussion on this? This is for introduction too, by the way. Okay, so Ms. Nyden, would you call Alderman?
Could we just have Ms. Nyden explain this for the public, please?
Well, you just agreed to subdivide the property and recommend to City Council to subdivide the property. So now the existing development is not in conformance. The numbers changed. So SAR, the lot coverage, those things need to now require a major adjustment. So that's what the committee is reviewing and agreeing to do.
And you're speaking of the development that already exists.
Correct. The development that already exists, that is there now, that is known commonly as the Marion, formerly the North Shore Retirement Hotel.
Yeah. Okay. Is that clear? Alderman Fisk, do you feel like that's a clear enough explanation?
No, I don't, but that's all right.
I guess, if I may, the operative thing here is it's not changing anything. It's just staying the same. So this allows it to stay the same.
Okay. All right. Let's take a vote on this. Or do we need to vote a voice vote, or do we need to vote?
I will roll call.
Thank you.
Alderman Fisk.
Yes.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yes.
Alderman Wilson.
Yes.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Yes.
Alderman Suffredin. Alderman Ravel.
Yes.
And Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. The ordinance will be introduced. That concludes our agenda for this evening for planning and development. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All right, and the council will, shall we say, will start at in 10 minutes. So right now it's, well, let's call it 6:50. So let's say the council will start promptly at 7. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, staff.